Welcome to Coffee, Eggs and Inspiration. It's a weekly show that goes out over YouTube and as a podcast over all of the major channels. And each week I get to sit with an inspiring person and listen to them tell their story and share it with all of you. This week is no different. I'm here with Edan Dover. Welcome, Edan.
What's up, Greg? How are you?
I'm doing really well. Edan is sitting there, and I think you're in Los Angeles, right?
That's right.
I'm in London. It's dark for me outside. It's morning time for you.
Yeah,
and I'm sure your weather is slightly better.
I woke up about an hour ago, so my face has still got a blanket imprint, pillow imprint on it, but I'm happy to be here. This is a great way to start the morning.
Well, I feel like I woke up an hour ago, but it's been a long day already for me. Edan is one half of a band, a huge band called The Score, pop, rock, alternative, kind of a mixture of all of those. These guys are a big deal. Spotify, 4.4 million listeners, YouTube channel with 1.3 million subscribers, and getting very close to 1 billion views of the content on the YouTube channel, just under 700 million so far, and building really rapidly. Some of the top tracks that people might recognize: Unstoppable, 110 million streams on Spotify; Legend, 113 million streams, and many, many others with big millions behind them. Really impressive situation that you're in now. What I think is really, really interesting as well is what led you here, Edan. So tell me how you got started. You're actually a classically trained musician, right?
Yeah, I'm a pianist. I started when I was in second grade. I started taking piano lessons, and I took piano lessons my entire life. I started in classical. Around 15 years old, I switched to jazz and started learning jazz, which was really cool because it opened my ears to improvisation, which is essentially composing spontaneously as you perform. So it forced me to really hear the music in my head before I play it, rather than just reading notes off of a page. And I think that was really instrumental to making the transition to composing and producing music later on. And just like really understanding music from a theoretical standpoint, and you know, how to dissect a song and understand everything happening. I was always good at like math and science. I'm a pretty technical guy, so it was natural for me to be able to dissect songs and kind of understand the DNA of what makes songs sound so good. So I was always intrigued by that. And then I eventually went to college for jazz performance, or I started as a jazz performance major.
Do you find when you're performing live these days, do you do a lot of improv? Do you use those skills when you're performing your current band?
Yeah, there's moments where I'm able to do that. Otherwise, I'd say that most of the improvisation for me happens in the studio. It's the creation process in the studio where that happens.
And the other thing I find intriguing there is that you were big on maths and science, and here you are, a professional musician. Do you see a relationship between those two? Is there a link, do you think, between a mathematical way of thinking and a musical way of thinking?
Yeah, 100%. I think that, you know, I always enjoyed, and I was always good at basically taking any finished product. And for me, it was always like artistic things like music or visuals. And it has, when you watch the final product, it kind of can have an emotional effect. It really brings together all these small elements to have a larger, to like create a bigger picture sort of. And I was always fascinated by trying to dissect that and figure out what the small pieces, just like in physics, where everything you observe in physics is judged and kind of defined by these rules, these formulas. And I thought it was so cool how a set of instructions basically for the universe could result with, when you throw in a bunch of different factors and different circumstances and situations, could result in so many different final products. And so that whole like kind of thought process, I found that in music you could apply the same thought process to create it.
And do you find that is there a formula for a great track that's gonna really pick up? Is there a formula, and if so, what is it?
That's the big question, right? I can't tell you all my secrets, Greg. No, there definitely, I'm kidding. There's definitely formulas there. There's tricks, there's things that I mean, you can learn them just by listening to other songs. But you kind of build your own bag of tricks as you're doing this for long enough. And you train your ear to realize what's missing. Oh, maybe like, maybe the song, the verse, every phrase on the verse of a song starts on the downbeat. And then when the chorus came, it also started on the downbeat, which is the beat number 1 of the measure. And that can feel a little bit cookie cutter and rigid. So then you realize, oh, the chorus needs to start before the downbeat or after to create that contrast. So things like in music and in building songs, it's like always thinking about contrast and like, if you want the chorus to really impact and feel big, then you need to create a moment before the chorus that is really quiet. And that's how you feel an impact of a big chorus. So understanding those methods and working with contrast and stuff like that. I could go into more detail, but
what's really interesting listening to you is this blend of both mathematical thinking and sort of almost formulaic thinking, yet improvisation at the same time, and the mix of those two that comes together, because they feel quite different to me. Are they?
Yeah. Well, when you're in the studio and you're first coming up with ideas, you may not be on stage. Improvisation is usually like in jazz improvisation, you're on stage, so you're creating on stage. But when you're in the studio, you're improvising. It's just that nobody sees it until the finished product is made. So when I'm sitting down at the keys, trying to come up with ideas with Eddie, which is my partner, he's a singer of the band, for a track, we're improvising, basically, the two of us together. And we're trying to, whether me like trying a piano melody or what if the drum beat switched from here to here, and sometimes we're just like jamming out actually in the studio, like just messing around until something feels good, and then we start repeating that and being like, okay, is this the basis for a new song, or where the bridge could go, or something like that. So improvisation still happens.
Right. Fantastic. I'm going to take you back in time again as well, because I think the way that you got your big break, I mean, there's no such thing as an overnight success, right? It's certainly a very long night, if there is such a thing. But do you remember a point in time that you kind of felt like you'd made a breakthrough? You've been grinding away and you got that big break. And if so, can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So basically, in college, after college, I was interested in, I got interested in production, pop production. I think in high school, I was more of a jazz head, and I kind of thought that jazz was the only music you needed to know and play. It was superior to all other genres, which was obviously silly. I mean, there's so much art and value in so many songs with vocals and incredible songwriting, and that's like a whole nother science and art in and of itself. And I got to really dig into it in college, and then I decided, I wanted to learn how to do production, how to do pop production. And I learned that wasn't so easy. It took a while to get decent at it. And Eddie and I started working together in it was 2011 we met. Gosh, it's crazy how long ago it is now. We're in 2020. And I was in New York City, and we got together every day and worked out of my bedroom. I had a little computer set up and a couple speakers set up in my tiny closet of a bedroom. It was so small, this bedroom, that the shower was a closet. So to take a shower, there's a door that looked like a closet, and you open the door and it was literally a little shower stall. And my studio was set up right next to it. So that was life in Manhattan. at the time, and I was working a full-time job at the time, and I think so was Eddie too when he first started. And we got together every day and just worked on our craft and learned how to write better, learned how to produce, and just wrote songs and wrote and wrote and wrote. It's really a game of consistency, persistence, and just like little wins that accumulate over time. And so we wrote a lot of songs that sucked. We wrote a couple cool ones, and we decided to start a band. And fast forward a couple years, Eddie and I decided that we should move to Los Angeles because a bunch of our friends have been moving to Los Angeles. Him and the job, like at that point, I was working actually in the music industry in the marketing department at a company called ASCAP, and they put on an expo, like a conference for songwriters and creators every year in Los Angeles. And I had already gone a couple years as an intern and then later as an employee to help out at that conference to help put it on. And then one year, Eddie came to actually be at the conference too. And the two of us were there. So I was kind of working there, but I was also kind of experiencing the conference as a musician with Eddie. And we both just realized that like everybody was there. I mean, we ended up like hanging out with like Plain White T's lead singer, which years later we'd end up actually writing with him. And just hanging out with a bunch of people that we had heard about but hadn't met. And we realized this is where the action is. Los Angeles is where the action is. It's where the creatives are, and we had to move out there. So we moved to Los Angeles. I picked up all my stuff, and my whole family is still in New York, except my sister, who's actually in London. But at the time, my whole family was in New York, and I just took that risk and decided to move to LA.
And where you remain, lucky you, having the beach so close and the nice weather. But there's not just your sister, that there's the connection to the UK. I believe one of your early commercial successes was in the UK as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Eddie and I started writing, and I think one of the first songs we wrote in Los Angeles was a song called "Oh My Love." And it was just, I mean, Eddie and I at the time had been writing all sorts of songs. This one happened to be kind of like indie pop vibe. And we were managed by two guys at the time who were young guys like ourselves who were learning along the way. And they came up with a brilliant idea because when we put "Oh My Love" out on SoundCloud, we just put it out on SoundCloud, and it started trending on SoundCloud, which was the first time that had ever happened to us, kind of just organically. They realized that a lot of the people who reached out, like there was music industry people who reached out when they heard our song on SoundCloud, they reached out just to like, I don't know, do some like prodding, like, what's your situation? What's the deal? Without actually making any moves. They just wanted to know what was going on with us. And they were all British for some reason. So our managers were very smart at the time, and they decided they thought that the song could get a sync, which is like the song could be placed as the music for a campaign, for like a commercial campaign of some sort. And they thought that UK companies were the best companies to target for that, since we got a response from the British music industry for that song. So yeah, somehow it worked. They cold emailed and called. Basically they found a list of the biggest companies in the UK online. And one of them was Asda, which is a huge UK retailer that I had never heard of at the time, but I saw that they were owned by Walmart and they were massive. So they, without even telling us, they emailed all the CEOs of all those companies, and they like didn't know the CEO's email. So they like literally like did like john.smith at first name dot last name at asda dot co.uk or whatever. They like guessed the emails. And apparently the CEO of Asda received their email with the song and loved it and was like, we happen to be putting together right now a 50-year anniversary campaign for our company, and we would love to make your song the centerpiece of the campaign. It was like a one in a million sync opportunity. he passed the song on to their marketing department, and they got in touch with our managers, and we found ourselves as like the theme song for this massive, massive sync campaign.
Which is a huge deal, right? Because it then extends the audience even more, and it becomes sort of in the psyche, and one of those little those tunes that goes on in people's heads. So ironically, that was the UK, but of course now your biggest market, as I understand it, is the US. We've made it really big. Your biggest track, I think, looking at your Spotify, is Legends in terms of number of streams. Anyway, can you tell us a little bit more about that track and where it came from?
Yeah. I think Legend came after Unstoppable. Unstoppable really was a song that we co-wrote with two other guys named David Hodges and Steve Solomon. We were doing writing sessions at the time with different people in LA, just, you know, trying to like co-write with people and change up the creative energy to see what we come up with. Unstoppable came out of that, and for some reason it really connected and started reacting. So we realized we had something there, and we started, Eddie and I also, you know, Oh My Love kind of happened to us in a way, and it was great, and we're so thankful because it led to getting signed to our label and, you know, really launched our careers. But it was kind of like a happenstance kind of indie pop vibe that Eddie and I kind of were just experimenting with and didn't necessarily like decide like this is the sound for us. So when we created Unstoppable, it was more of an alternative rock leaning edge that Eddie and I really loved more and we were more passionate about. So when Unstoppable reacted, we were really thankful for that, and we decided to try writing more music in that vein because, you know, we vibed with that more. And Legends came out of that. Eddie, I'd say really Legend is born out of like the dynamic that Eddie and I have in the studio. We've been working together for years now, and it's like being in the studio with him is like, it feels like we're speaking a second language. It's like we finish each other's sentences in a way, because when you build that kind of chemistry after consistently 6 days a week being in the studio together, you know, there's a chemistry that's built. And I think the song really comes from that chemistry. Eddie's a, you know, he grew up in sports. He is a really powerful, loud voice, powerful, aggressive, bold, confident energy. And I think that song showcases his energy really well. And then for me, it was just like, okay, how do I take this ball of energy and kind of turn it into like, it's like my version of a rock song in a way, I guess. Because like when you think of a rock song, you think of like guitar and drums, right? I'm not a guitarist. I'm not a drummer. I'm a keyboard player. I'm a synthesis kind of computer technical guy. So how do I take like the organic and like the unpredictable, rough around the edges kind of nature of rock and filter that through my kind of my lens? And so like, you know, creating the computery beats of that song together with like the energy of Eddie's voice, I think made that song really special.
Amazing, and it strikes me. I've listened to many of your songs, really enjoyed them. They're very anthemic, you know, evocative, energetic, and it's sort of, I find myself thinking about, and the video that goes with that is incredible as well. It'd be interesting to hear your story about why that video and sort of what inspired the imagery that went through it. But I think all of your songs have this feeling. They move you in a way, in a very energetic way, for me anyway. Tell us about the video. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, that video. I think it was actually our label, the head of the label of Republic got specifically interested in the song, and he came up with this idea. He thought that it would be great to showcase first responders with that song, which Eddie and I loved because You know, Eddie and I write music really about our own experiences. Like that song is kind of like an anthem to ourselves in a way, because um, you know, doing music is really difficult, and you get a lot of no's and you get a lot of rejection, and it it's kind of like you need this kind of unstoppable, not to quote our own songs, but kind of unstoppable like motivation in order to get anywhere, because you can't be discouraged. You kind of have to just like have this insane belief in yourself. And so I think that song was like us kind of telling ourselves, like, you know, we are legends. We can do this. We can achieve that ideal that we have for ourselves. And it kind of like is that encouraging vibe that we also like wanted to like showcase for our first responders, firefighters, police, you know, emergency workers. Especially now, I mean, I think the song takes on a new meaning, and that video takes on a new meaning now with COVID going on, because these guys are really the soldiers on the front lines that are, you know, that are sacrificing for all of us. And it's great to like, you know, put the spotlight on them through that song.
It's a fantastic and very, very timely, as timely and poignant as ever. Hasn't it been a weird year? We're filming this in December 2020. Yeah. We're all in different states of lockdown, restriction, hopefully some good news on the horizon. But it's been a strange year, hasn't it, for music as well, live music in particular. How's it been for you? And you know, without live, what have you been focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, we had so much planned for 2020. We had a Europe tour, Russia. We were looking at Australia, China. China was obviously one of the first places to get canceled, because that's where the virus started bubbling up at the beginning. And then, yeah, Mexico. So it was a bummer to have to cancel all that or postpone it. And so we've kind of been locked in our prison of a studio. We laugh about how our label kind of locks us in there and forces us to toil away writing music. So, I mean, I like the studio, you know, it was kind of refreshing to be home for a little bit, to be in LA, to spend time with my fiance, and to like, you know, focus on some of the endeavors that I had outside of music too. And then also just to get our hands dirty in the studio and write new music. Like we've collabed, we've done a lot of cool writing sessions with different people. We just wrote with Judah and the Lion last week. We've written, I can't think of them on the top of my head right now. We've written with a bunch of cool people while just doing Zoom sessions, you know what I mean? Which has worked. I prefer to write in the room with people rather than Zoom. But we're just eager to get back on the road again.
It sounds like there's a big body of work that's ready to burst out there. And you did make a reference to other endeavors. You're not just a pretty face and a fantastic musician, but you're actually an entrepreneur. You've got a new company. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah. So, you know, I've taken this time to kind of focus on a new endeavor, which basically it starts with my family. My father, his main business is he manufactures and sells leather jackets, World War II flight jackets specifically. And I was shopping for a leather jacket myself not too long ago, and everything I was finding in the store, I felt like the quality that I was getting and the style that I was getting was at the price point that I expected, given like what my dad sells for his jackets, was not good enough. And so I was like, Dad, can you make me a leather jacket and kind of do it like this? And I gave him, like, we created a pattern, how I envisioned it. And that's how the Moto jacket, the Ashr Moto jacket, was born. And I decided that, you know, wouldn't it be cool if I actually turn this into a business and sell these jackets? And, you know, and that's how this company Ashr was born. Ashr is the name of my grandfather. So it kind of harkens to like the family heritage that the whole idea, the leather jacket thing for me comes from. I mean, I grew up like in leather jacket factories, in my dad's leather jacket factory, and like, you know, hearing all the machinery and smelling the smell of the leather around me. And, you know, it's part of where I come from in my experience in my childhood. So I wanted to kind of reference that in the name of the brand. And right now we have 2 jackets. We have the bomber jacket and the moto jacket. They are dope leather jackets. Like, I guarantee you it's the highest quality leather jacket, especially made in the USA, that you will get at this price point. And I'm really excited to share it with the world.
You've certainly sold me, and I'm giving a sneak peek of the new website. It's launching. Can you tell us when?
It's launching Monday. I don't know when this is going to air, but it's going to launch, I guess, on the 15th or so, or maybe the 13th, something like that.
14th, I think, Monday, 14th.
There it is.
Looking forward to that, and it looks like you've got some good introductory deals. Let's end on this. You've given some great insight, I think, into the journey that you've been on, and the thing that sort of strikes me above all is the determination, resilience, and this unstoppable so-called attitude that you and your singing partner Eddie have had. All of the rejections. I mean, you have to be resistant to that negativity that you will inevitably encounter. So for those who are watching, who are maybe aspiring musicians trying to break through, perhaps they're fans of yours that are thinking about their own careers, whatever that may be, and facing some hardship at the moment, what would your advice be?
Well, I'd say first listen to a score song to get pumped. That'll turn you around. But no, I would say, I think looking back, it's crazy thinking about when I first started, everything meant so much. Like, the first couple songs I wrote, they meant so much to me. Little did I know they were going to be one of thousands of songs I would write. And like, every little opportunity I was given, like an opportunity to speak to an A&R at a music publishing company, I was like, this could be our big break. This is the biggest deal of my life, and we could end up on a Billboard chart tomorrow. But that was really a short-sighted view. And then when those opportunities or those songs didn't work out for us, it felt like the whole world was ending and everything was falling apart. But if I had the ability, which at the time, I mean, I really couldn't, you have to go through it to really understand, but to step back and realize this is just a small part of a long journey, and that these little things really don't mean much. It's about the consistency. It's about the small wins that happen over time. And over time, that mountain is going to build and build and build until it's huge. And you're going to be looking back at yourself 5 years down the road, looking back, realizing how far you've come, and not even realize, how did that even happen? You know, if I myself 9 years ago, knowing where I am now, I would be so over the moon to know where I would eventually end up. Like, I would be exploding with happiness, and like, but at the time it didn't feel like it was happening. So I'd say, like, be patient, be consistent, realize that like a little rejection in the moment is going to mean nothing in a few years from now. This whole journey, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So keep that perspective as you go along.
Wonderful advice. You're a real inspiration, certainly to me, and I think your story is remarkable, and you should rightly be proud of where you've landed. Edan Dover, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Greg. Appreciate it.